Hello, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you might be watching this. I'm back with another video to welcome and introduce a member of the faculty at the upcoming AJC Coaching School. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague and good friend, Melissa Ford. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Ankush. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be with you for this 25 or 30 minutes and then the masterclass.
Yeah, it's so great to have you here. I've really enjoyed creating all these videos. And one of the things that I love about you is I've been noticing you've been watching the videos as I've been putting them out. And, that really speaks volumes about you because you're such a kind of voracious learner. You want to really constantly learn and grow, which is always a sign of a great coach, rather than someone who's like, well, I kind of know this already. I don't need to check anything out. So that just reinforces why I wanted you on the faculty. But the reason I asked you, and I'm so honored and grateful that you said yes, and we've talked about this, was there are a lot of people I could have asked to be part of the faculty. And I chose 6 very specific people, and all 6 I was so delighted said yes. And the reason I asked you to be on the faculty was a couple of things. One was obviously our relationship and how I've seen you show up. So we met on a different coaching school, one that no longer exists anymore, that was run by Steve Chandler. And I got to know you, and I did that school 3 times, I believe. And then I came back to speak at the school. So kind of 3 and a bit. And you were there that the whole time. And I really watched you not just talk the words of service and being of service to people and understanding intellectually what that means, but you actually lived it. And I would see you both in your interactions with other people and with myself. And I'll be honest, at the beginning, when I went to the coaching school, I had my guard up because I had come across coaches who all they wanted to do was sign you up. And there was a bit of that kind of pushy sales energy. And so I was very careful and guarded talking to other coaches because I was like, well, I'm not going to hire you, back away. And when I interacted with you, it was like, oh, this woman is genuinely helping me out without looking for anything in return. Mm. And this is the thing, as you did that, I watched people hire you both in the school and outside of the school as your coaching practice grew. So I really thought there was no one better to come in and teach that service aspect and what service really means, because people don't get it. There's levels of understanding to that. And I keep seeing more about that. Yeah. But secondly, was because you weren't someone who overnight became, I'm a 7-figure coach. I just started my coaching practice and now I'm an overnight success. Because whilst that can look so impressive, it's not the journey that most of us go on. And I know it's been so helpful for me witnessing your journey because now you are incredibly successful and, very well thought of and a published author and so many of the kind of, I guess, the things that we look for in terms of success as a coach. But it wasn't always that way for you. And I think that made you more relatable to me. And it also helped me on my journey that when I was thinking, it's not going quick enough, what would be helpful to me is there are people like Melissa who they just stayed on the path. And when they stayed on the path, they kept growing and kept moving. And as you still are, you're still learning, have gone on from strength to strength. So thank you for coming. And I hope we get to talk about some of that today.
Yeah. Well, I'm honored to be here, Ankush. And I remember when we first met at Steve's school was it called ACS then or Coaching Prosperity?
It was called ACS. Yeah.
Okay. So I remember meeting you, and I also was very guarded when I first started, but I wasn't guarded about somebody attempting to enroll me. I was just guarded because I thought, who are all these people who were so jazzed about service? And I actually have a friend who said, I remember you sitting in that room and you had your arms crossed, you had a leather jacket on, and you're sitting back like this. Because I didn't understand service. I wasn't all that excited about service. I just happened to have hired someone, Steve Chandler, who couldn't stop talking about it or asking me what would serve. And so I couldn't seem to avoid the question or being in a conversation around service. So I was very suspect in the beginning.
Now that you say that, I remember that there were probably things that I related to in that. That's maybe why we struck up a bit of a friendship. Yeah. Now that you say that, because I also was like, well, I want to be cool. I don't want to be totally sucked into all this kind of happy stuff and just like serve and whatever. But I've seen both of us change and shift. We've drunk the Kool-Aid, as they say, over the years. And I remember Steve Chandler saying to me once that the thing that is the hardest for you to learn is the thing that you're best at teaching. And I think that's one of the reasons that you're so good at teaching service, because it took you longer than most people to kind of really start together. And this is, again, why I asked you to be on the faculty. So could you talk a little bit about what took you time to learn and maybe the nuances? Because I'm assuming that the things that maybe you didn't understand might be the same things for people listening to this. And it could be really useful for them on this video, whether they attend the school or not, to maybe hear you talk about that.
Sure. So, well, to start with, I really didn't understand service. And I did not come from a family where we served. We weren't giving back to our community. We weren't volunteering. We weren't going to the local church bake sale and bringing baked goods. We just weren't doing these kinds of things. And I would always want to say, but we weren't bad people. I mean, it just wasn't the conditioning I was raised in. And so I didn't really know what it meant. And that's number one, strike one, had no idea. But what's really interesting is people show up with an idea of service. So my idea of service was that it was for the do-gooders who were trying to get a place in heaven and be better than everybody else. That's really what I thought people who were service-oriented were like. I've run across people who think service is self-sacrifice, or if I just give, the universe is going to have my back. So there's all kinds of misunderstanding around what service is. So I guess I just started where I needed to start. And as I went along, it moved from just really seeing that I had to get better and better and better at getting the focus off of me, because I was somebody who really wanted to get clients. I wanted to make money. I wanted to get clients. I didn't want to spend a lot of time doing it. When I first hired Steve, I wanted his 5 steps. I wanted a very transactional relationship with Steve, which now has turned into 12 years of coaching. But I was just really looking for, how can I get this person? So everything about service was the opposite of that. It's help somebody before they pay you. It's get the attention off of what you want, be unattached, and start helping somebody first. And that took me a while to process that. And I had to make a lot of mistakes. I had to end up being pushy. I had to try to work people through an exercise to get them to say yes. I mean, I failed a lot, which is what I wrote about in my book. I eventually started to see that if I truly helped somebody and cared about them, knowing full well that the ultimate service I could provide was a paid coaching relationship, that if I showed up unattached and wanting to really be of the greatest help that I could be, that ultimately started to create paid relationships, paid clients. So for me, it was a walk from not liking service to trying to figure out what service was, to realizing the more that I practiced getting the focus off of me and getting into somebody else's world without an attachment to needing them to like me, needing them to hire me, needing them to get what I was trying to get them to get, that I could show up from a place of really loving them, caring about them, asking the best questions that I could, listening as well as I could. And that ultimately led to people saying, well, how do we work together? And I remember the first time when I was asked that, I was astounded, because I thought that was just a myth. I thought, oh, that's just something my coach told me and he wrote about in books. But it actually started to occur.
So I love that. And I can so relate to that journey as well. I remember once Steve Chandler said to me, all right, you can't make any coaching proposals for the next month. And that terrified me. I was like, what do you mean I can't make any coaching? I thought I'm finally getting the hang of this coaching thing. And now you said I can't make a proposal. He said, no. And I said, well, what am I supposed to do? And he went, serve. And the only way you're going to get clients is if they ask you. If they ask you, how do we work together? Then you can talk about it.
Yeah.
And so that was a real kind of lesson in what service means. And could you talk about that a little bit? Because people can hear this word service and really serve the person and get in the client's world. But I know for me, let's just say what I thought service looked like, or the level of service I had to deliver for someone to say, can I work with you? I thought it was here, and it was actually way up here. The kind of detail of it almost, or what it looks like, was so vastly different to my initial impression. I'm assuming it was the same for you. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it definitely was. And I remember Steve said the same thing to me, stop proposing. I was never given a period of time to stop proposing. So literally, I didn't propose for years. And then it was like, why aren't you proposing? Why aren't you coming up with a recommendation? Why? But so I hung out in, for me, it was invite, coach, invite, coach, invite, coach. So on the whole thing of connect, invite, coach, propose, I had 2 things that I was doing: inviting and coaching, inviting and coaching. The biggest shift happened for me when I got together with two colleagues, Gary Mahler and Dave Schwendeman, and we created this game called the Service Game. And Gary came to me and he said, hey, do you want to do this? And I said, listen, I've been serving for over 3 years or however long it is. And it's still a grind. It's still just a real grind. Sometimes it works. Often it doesn't. I'm stressed out. I don't sleep well at night. I'm constantly trying to think about what I'm doing wrong and what could I do right. And so when he came to me, I was just like, oh my gosh, so how is this going to be any different? And I said, well, what's the game? And he said, we're just going to powerfully serve and love people and meet them where they're at. And I said, well, why don't we do that, but play without our fear? Because I've been doing my best to serve like that, but I've been dragging along this fear that nobody's going to hire me. And I'm just sick of it. And I was at a point, Kush, where I thought I might as well find out whether this service thing really works and what the heck it is anyway, because it was still conceptual. I was still using it as a tool. And so we got together, the three of us, and we played this game, and I was fully committed. And this was honestly the first time that I had really engaged with colleagues in an open way, and we were committed to one another's success. Prior to that, I was constantly comparing myself to people. I was trying to compete with other people. I was jealous of other people. I was superior to other people. It was just a mess. It was such a head game for me. These guys show up and they're laughing and telling jokes, and I'm so serious. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe this will be good for me. And I really so love and appreciate these two men because I learned so much from them. And what I learned was, first of all, I was committed to their success. Anything and everything I could do so they could be successful in their coaching and serve and continue to grow in service, I was ready for it. From connecting on Facebook Messenger to talking to Dave or Gary multiple times a week, to getting together as a group, on Zoom or whatever we were doing. And that started to open up for me, moving from service as something that I was doing to try to get a client to a way of being. I always likened it to the story of the Grinch. My heart grew 3 times its size. But I really cared about these guys. And then I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to find out about this. Because if I can't serve without this constant need for this thing to work, then I don't want to do it anymore. I'm just going to go get a job. I'm going to do something else. And the game that I played was that I was going to help somebody as much as I could. I was going to profoundly serve and love them. And nobody was going to hire me ever again. So I was free for 3 months from this need to get hired. And every time it would crop up inside of this 3 months, I would recommit, nobody's hiring me. So I just went full out coaching, serving. I'd invite somebody to conversation. We'd work on something. I'd say, you want some homework? Great. Why don't we talk again? And I talked with them again. So I did anything and everything that I could to help move the needle for somebody. And I know what happened. What happened was people started to get, it wasn't about Melissa. It was about them. And because they got it was about them, they would say to me, how do we do this? And I was ready. And I would always do 3 months. I was the let's get you started coach. It's 3 months. Here's my fee. This is how many sessions. Do you want to do it? Yes. Okay. Let's get our sessions in the book. And that's what I did. And during that 3 months, because I had gotten to myself to this place where my coaching was pretty good, and I had been coached by a great coach. And I just had so many conversations that it just blew up in a great way. And that's when I saw what service was. I saw it really was. Do I care enough about you to help you? Knowing full well the best way I can continue to help you is if we're in a fully committed relationship. You've paid me, I'm getting paid. We're working together. That's where it changed for me. And then from there, it just kept opening up. So it moved from doing and getting into more of a way of being. And it just changed everything. It changed everything. And then the three of us continued to play that game for the next 2.5 years. I still play the game with myself today.
Would you mind sharing kind of, whilst you came from a place of no one's going to hire me, what happened in financially with you? What happened kind of clients wise? Did you sign people up? Did you make money? Did you make less money?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did. What I did was I actually made six figures in 3 months. Now, I don't want people to go, oh, I'm going to play the service game and make six figures in 3 months. I started coaching back and got on the personal development path back in 1995. I think we played this game in 2014 or 2015. So I had been coaching for a while. I had hired coaches. I had gone to retreats. I'd done all kinds of things. So I was ready for that financial breakthrough. Like I was teed up for it. With Dave and Gary, they had their own breakthroughs, which were perfect for them at where they were on their own journey. But for me, it was me seeing, oh, okay, when you serve in this way, clients get created. Not everybody said yes. That was another thing that I had to learn. I remember one of my coaching sessions with Steve, I said, if I just really get this enrollment nailed down, I get the perfect system, then people are going to say yes. And he said, do you think everybody says yes? I'm like, yeah, wouldn't they? He goes, yeah, no, that's not how sales works, because this is sales. What I'm doing is I'm doing it in a particular way, though, that gives somebody the experience of coaching and working with me, what it's like to have me in their corner, what it's like for me to actually show up and be honest and loving and truthful. And then they can make a decision. Do they want to make this investment?
It's such a good point. I love that you raise that, because in the school, we've got people at very different levels, different starting positions. We've got people who are very new to coaching, and we've got people who are making six figures already. And what's great is that the content of the school, which is a lot of content we learned from Steve Chandler and some other stuff, but the content is applicable to everyone at every stage.
Yes.
Right. And I love that you're still playing the game, because you still see it, and it's just at a different level now, or a different fee level. And I remember, I love the story. I don't know if it was in that 3 months, but certainly when you were still, playing the service thing with Gary, like I remember is it true you created your first $50,000 client?
Yes.
I
did.
I still remember that. And so I don't want to say this is all about money, but the school is about helping people be more prosperous. And one thing that I didn't get at the beginning is it's not about you serve to, hey, I'm serving you, now pay me. But when people are really being like that, and I love that you use that, it's about who you're being, it comes back to you. It can't not, So I'm always amused by people who say, oh, I tried the prosperous coach approach, or I tried to be of service and it didn't work for me, because it always works every single time, but only when you're actually being of service.
Yeah. And it works in different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean that, I'm going to provide somebody 2 or 3 coaching sessions and we're going to, look at some things and life's going to be different and they're going to say yes to me. I've had many people say no, but I've also had people where I've met them and I've thought, there's something about this person. I really like the way that they interact with other people. I like how they show up in business. I like their grit and their determination. And so I'll invite those people into conversations. And for example, I had one woman that I did a presentation to a group of women in finance. And I just really enjoyed this woman. I said, why don't we have a conversation? And she's like, well, I'm really not looking for a coach. I said, that doesn't matter. Is there something that you've got going on in your world and you like it to be different? Well, yeah. So we had 2 sessions and then it was obvious there was nothing to propose to her and we were done. And she's like, can I pay you? And the way in which I work is no. There are some coaches, and that's great. Their model is that they do get paid for those initial sessions. And I just said, nope, we're good. Hope it works, blah, blah, blah. Well, unbeknownst to me, she moves, I'm in Illinois and she moves to another state. And between the time that we coached and a couple of years later, I end up getting a referral from her for somebody who heads up their own financial investment firm. I coach that person on leadership, but I get the referral because this woman's going around and talking about these 2 sessions she had with me changed the game in her life. And so that's just what I didn't know that was going on. But it came from this understanding that I have to be a part of the service equation. So it's got to benefit me, not just because I'm getting paid, but are the people that I'm talking to, do they light me up? Is this something that's fun? And it doesn't mean that I always started up with, oh, I only talk to people who light me up. I coached anybody and everybody in the beginning, but those 2 sessions for me served me. And I was super jazzed to talk to her and find out about her life and how she got started in trading and what her current career is. It was delightful, really.
It's such a good point because, true service or really, really impactful service, let's say, it really stands out in my experience. And this is true even, I'm talking outside of coaching. If I have a really great experience in any industry and anywhere, like I'll remember it. I remember the time, and I've spoken about this a couple of places, where I was catching a flight from Las Vegas to England, and I got to the counter and I didn't have my passport. And I'm looking for it, and I couldn't find it. And then all of a sudden I was like, all right, calm down. Remember what you teach other people, let your mind settle. And I suddenly had an insight. I'm like, I know exactly where it is. It's on the floor of the casino where I had breakfast this morning, and it was red carpet and the passport was red. And so I said to the check-in staff, I said, hey, I'm going to go and get a taxi and I'm going to rush back here for the flight because I've left my passport. And the lady goes, yeah, you're not going to make it. I'll take you.
Wow.
And the woman who was the head of the check-in staff, and it was Virgin Atlantic, right? She drove me, she had a really nice 5 Series BMW, right? She drove me all the way to the hotel, the casino hotel. I ran in, I get the passport. She drives me all the way back. We're chatting away the whole time. And as you know me, that's very common, right? Nattering away. And then I get the flight.
Yeah.
And since then, I have tried, if I can, I never take another airline. I will fly somewhere. And I've had so many other great experiences with that airline. And I talk about it like all the time. Virgin Atlantic, I love them, love the service because it stands out.
Yeah, we do that with hotels and restaurants and you name it, we do it. And I've gotten over time, I'm so much pickier about the level of service that I'm willing to pay for. Meaning, if it goes beneath a particular level for me, I'm just really not interested. I'd rather make dinner at home, or I'd rather save up extra money so I can go to that hotel. Yeah,
that's absolutely it. And so I love that you said that because it's so true. It's like, I think Steve Chandler would call it planting seeds. It's farming versus hunting. We're not hunting for clients, we're planting seeds. And like you said, that person may refer you to someone else. They may come back and hire you. I think the longest time between having a coaching conversation and someone hiring me, I think it's been 4 or 5 years, but it's like quite a long time. And people that I'd totally forgotten about would come back. And again, that's not why you do it, but it's incredible that it stands out, and every industry it matters, but I think especially in coaching, and it's really misunderstood.
Yeah, it really is. I have a short story. It's kind of cool. I have a current client who said to me, hey, I got a text from my husband's cousin, and the cousin thinks that he knows you. What? She goes, and she tells me his name. And I go, he was on a flight with me to Colorado for his bachelor party. And I remember talking to him, and I remember what it was that he was wanting to create. I sent him some audios. I remember this guy. Wow. And it was just, and it was just the funniest thing. It's like it shows back up, and this guy remembers our exchange because it was coming from, who are you? What do? You want to own a couple of restaurant chains? What seems to be getting in the way? And it was just because it was an open, fun conversation.
Yeah.
So you never know. And plus it feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good. That's the thing. That now it's at a place where who I'm being, I want to be somebody who really does get across to somebody how much they matter and to help them with whatever I can help them with. And in order for me to do that, I have to continue to look at my own life and get coaching on it. So my ability to be better and better as a coach elevates my service. And that comes about by me being willing to do my own work, which in turn then changes who I am and how I show up in those conversations. So there's no end to this, which now for me is fun. Before it was like, could it end? I just don't want to learn anymore. And I just want to be a coach who gets paid. Then you'll get to a place where it's like, you don't want it to end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Melissa, I could talk to you for another 2 hours. We will have 2 hours in the masterclass, which I'm looking forward to. I think we're booked in for January next year. I'm so pleased that you're part of the school. There's so much other stuff we want to talk about, which we will, including, like you said, investing in yourself, including more about your journey and the pitfalls that you had along the way. But we'll cover all that in the masterclass. I hope this has given people a bit more of a feel for you and who you are and your heart, where you're coming from, which is I really feel that every time I talk to you. So thank you so much for your time today. And I hope people get a lot of value out of this.
Yeah. Thanks, Kush.